Oh, get off the wall. 36, exactly 18 seconds for lap 2. Get off the wall. Get off the wall. And 54. So I was 18 seconds per lap. Okay, welcome back to the off-road tutorial series. In the last episode, we got the car moving around the map and skidding and bumping into the walls and slowing down if he's driving up against the wall too close. I did tweak a couple of things off camera. So in the 8 directional properties here, I've just tweaked a few of these. So have a look, make sure your settings are the same. One thing I want to do first today is I want to change the artwork on the car. If we play the game now, it's in a side view here, and when we go around corners it goes into top down. I want the whole thing to be top down view. I think it will flow better, so let's change that first. If we double click on the car, so what we want to effectively do is just have this one, so we can duplicate that, drag that back to the 0 one, and this is facing left, and all I'm going to do here is just rotate it, and I'm going to drag it down there, so I can get rid of that frame now. And then we want one going right, which I can use this one, copy it, and I'm going to delete that, I'm going to paste it, and then I'm going to rotate it. Oh. I'm going to delete that, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to rotate it and drag it down into the middle there. And now I think that's going to look a little bit better. Yeah, so we're going right, although you can see it's not quite, yeah, the origin point needs to change. So we go back in here, look at the origin points. Yeah, it's right up here by that wheel. He doesn't rotate there, he rotates in the center. So that needs to be bang in the middle, and that one needs to be bang in the middle there. And now, yeah, now we're better. So now we can skid around corners, can bump into things. Great. Okay, now that that's done, I want to add a screen shake. So when he bumps into the wall, I want the screen to shake slightly. So we're going to need to click on the car, and we're going to need to add a new behavior, and that is going to be scroll to. Now when we come back to the event sheet, okay, we don't have an action for an event for it, so let's create that. So we're going to add an event, and we're going to say car on collision with, it'll be a tile background wall. Then we're going to say car shake. Now that's not really going to work, and I'll tell you why. You can see we're colliding with the wall and it's not working, and the reason for that is because the layout size is the same as the viewport, so it doesn't have anywhere to shake. So to make that work, you have to set unbounded scrolling, but this will present a new problem. You can see now that we can see way outside the level of the game, which is what we don't want. I'm going to set it a little bit bigger, and I'm going to put like a little stadium around the outside. So we're going to say, instead of 320, we're going to add 50 on, so we're going to say 370. And we're going to add 50 onto that to 230. And then what I want to do is, I've got everything highlightable here, nothing's locked. I'm going to drag everything across, and I'm going to pop that in the middle of the layout. I'm going to add in the stadium later. We can drag that down to there and this across to there, just so it's nice and tidy, because we're going to see the outside of this now. And I'm just going to put a few rows and some basic pixel art in there, which we'll create in the tutorial as well. So sorry if that was a bit tedious. Let me just see how that looks now. Yeah, I think that's okay. The screen shake's a little bit too hard, a bit too harsh. So let's reduce that down. So we can just set this, we can set the magnitude to 10 and the duration to 0.2. Yeah, what do we think? Do we like it? Leave a comment, let me know. I'm going to try and reduce the magnitude down, I think, to 5. I don't want it to be a massive shake, just a little one. Yeah, that's okay. Makes it look like we're crashing into the wall. Yeah, I like it. Right, now we need to put a level timer. So we need a clock at the top that ticks around and tells you kind of how quickly you're doing each lap. So let's create that now. Double click, let's create some text, pop some text in there. We need to set it white. So we'll drag that up to white. Now I want to use the same font that I used for my Space Attack game. So I'm just going to check that and see what font I used. I used Korean New. So that's what I'm going to use for this one. So I'm going to change the font here. There we go. Help if I learn the alphabet. Korean New. And I'm going to set the size to 6. I'm going to do center and center. And I'm going to pop that. This needs to be on a layer that has a 0,0 parallax because I don't want it to move around the screen. And if you see these dotted lines here, you can just about make that. If I turn the grid off, you'll be able to see those. See these dotted lines here? This represents the screen. So if I pop it in the top right hand corner, it'll sit there as long as the layer is on a parallax of 0. So I'm going to need to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this HUD. No, I'm not, because I already have a HUD level in my game. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it HUD underscore off road. And now that's a new layer. And I'm going to set the parallax here, over here on the left, to 0 and 0. And that's important to stop the text following the camera around. So if I now play the game, that should sit. It's on the wrong layer. It's on collisions. Set it to the on the layer here. Set it to the HUD off-road layer. So now it's going to sit up in the top right-hand corner, there, all the way through. But I don't think I want it there. Let's pop it in the bottom left. Yeah, that's better. And I'll create a little hub bar that will sit in. Let's do that now. So on the HUD layer, double click, let's add a tile background, and let's color this in to keep with our theme. I'm going to go slightly grey, but we can keep the size the same. I'm going to go slightly grey, and I'm going to pop that there, and then I'm going to resize this. I can turn the grid size now back up to 8x8 and snap to grid. Where did I put that? Yeah, 8x8, snap to grid, and now we can drag it in. And again, it's going to be on the HUD layer, so it's not going to move. I just want to cover the bottom portion of the screen there, and I want to change the opacity to 50%. And then I want to bring the text, if we right click it on the Z order, to the top. So it's going to sit on top of that box there. I may need to change the opacity here to 30 to make the text stand out. That looks a bit better. That looks better. Yeah, there we go. And there's our kind of basic little HUD bar at the bottom sitting there. And that's going to display our time and our nitros that we pick up and all of that other stuff. Right. I'm going to rename this txt underscore timer. And we're going to go back to the event sheet, and we're going to create another group. We're going to create a group, and we're going to call this lap time. Now, system, every X seconds, so every 1 second, we want to. In fact, we're going to need a global variable to track the time. So add a global variable, and we're going to call this lap time. It's going to be a number. Every 1 second, we're going to go system, and we're going to add to the, and ignore all these other ones because again, this is a mini game within a bigger game. You'll just have lap time there. We're going to add 1 to lap time. And then we need to do text. We need to do, sorry, every tick. So every frame of the game, we want to set the text, the timer text. We want to set that to display that global variable lap time. So now it will tick on 1 second at a time. So 0, 1, 2, 3, exactly round. So what we need to do now is set up a trigger that says once we've passed the start line for the first time, enable the timer. And then when we cross it, when we've done a lap, we need to then record the lap time. So let's do that next. So lap time is going to be disabled when we start the layout. So we need to set another group here. I'm going to call this one setup off-road because I've got a few setup groups already, but this one's going to be the setup of this game. We're going to do system and we're going to do on start of layout. And on start of layout, we're going to go system and we're going to go group set active. Again, I'm going to have lots of groups in here, but you'll only have the few that we've made. Just find lap time and set it to deactivated and pop it in there. So when the level starts, oh, cancel that. When the level starts, it's not going to do anything. In fact, we need to change the word text and we're going to just set it to 0. So when the level starts, it's just going to sit there at 0 and not do anything. And now what we need to do is trigger it so that when we go over the start line, it starts ticking down. So we can add an event to setup and we can say car on collision with another object, and that's going to be the start line. So find the sprite for that. Mine is going to be, what did I call it? Close that. What did I call it? It's just called tile background 2. That's where you need to name your sprites. TB start grid. So now we can go add an event and we can say sprite car on collision with another object. No, on collision with another object, and that's going to be TB. Let's just type it in. TB start grid. So when we collide with the start grid, then we're going to set this group activated, and then you just make sure the car starts behind the grid when it begins. So on the start layout, we wait. We'll have a countdown timer, 3, 2, 1, whatever that might look like. We'll do that in another tutorial, and then we'll drive, and then the timer starts. Now what we need to do is we need to set that timer to record a lap time. So we need some more text. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to clone it. Make sure that's important because it's got to be a separate timer, a separate object, sorry. I'm going to call this text lap 1. And then the lap time is going to sit over here. I'm going to change the size to 4. And I'm going to right justify it on the horizontal alignment. And we're going to pop it there. Actually, no, I'm going to keep it centered there. And I'm going to drag out, sorry, I'm going to clone it again. And I'm going to paste it down. I'm going to pop it underneath. And this is going to be lap 2, which it defaults to nicely. And I think I'm already going to need to extend my HUD up 1. And then I'm going to clone that one again, pop it underneath. And that's going to be lap 3. And then my timer, I'm going to move up there. Okay, so these now are just going to sit at 0, ready to be timed. So when we go around, when we cross this a second time, then we're gonna copy whatever that timer says and we're gonna put it in there. So the way we're gonna do that is create an instance variable for the grid. So create an instance variable, and this is going to track what lap we're on. So I'm going to call it lap, and I'm going to keep it as a number, and I'm going to say OK. So when we start the game, this will default to 0. So it's important to put that in because if we retry the game a few times, every time we load it, we want it to reset that instance variable. So we're going to say TV start grid on start of layout. We're going to set the value of its lap to 0. So when we start, it's going to be 0. Now on collision with the start grid, we're going to set the lap time active, but we're also going to add 1 to lap 0. So let's go here. We're going to go start grid and we're going to add 2 lap by 1. So this is going to mean that because we start on 0, when we collide with it the first time, it's going to set it active, it's going to set it to lap 1. So now when we cross it the second time, if it equals lap 1 when we hit it, then we can then set the timer. So follow along. If I'm sounding confusing, don't worry, it will all make sense at the end. So we can go back to our lap timer group now, and we can say, we can copy this actually and we can drag it down. So we can say on collision with start grid, but this time we need to add a sub event. So push B when you've highlighted it, or just right click and add a sub event. And we're going to say start grid, compare instance variable lap if lap is equal to 0. And then we're going to copy it out and we're going to say if lap is equal to 1. And then we're going to copy it out again and we're going to say if lap is equal to 2. And then we're going to do one more and say if lap is equal to 3, because the third time round we want to end the race. So if lap is equal to 0, that means we haven't started yet. So in fact we don't need to, we've got this up here. In fact what we'll do is we'll drag that one up and we'll put it in up here under the sub event, because that's the initial one. So when we collide with it, if lap equals 0, then we start the timer and we add 1 to the lap, so it becomes lap 1, and then this is when we're going around. So if lap time equals 1 when we collide with it, what we want to do is we want to go and get the lap 1 text, and we want to set that text to whatever our global variable is saying, so our lap time. And then we want to go down here, if lap 2, then we want to go back and we want to set the lap 2 text to the exact same thing. And then the same thing on lap 3. The same thing on lap 3, we go back, we get the lap 3 text, and we set it to the lap time. So if we touch it in its lap 1, we record the time. Lap 2, we record the time. Lap 3, we record the time. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Let's see if it works. So we've got the timer there. Oh, we've recorded it once, so we might need to tweak that. But it should tweak the second one. So we'll get around the course, 9 seconds, 10, 11. See how quickly we can do it. And then 19. Okay, that's fine. That's recorded lap 1. There's an easy tweak there. Let's just make sure if we can beat our lap time. Oh, slow me down there. 30. Okay, so it's just setting the same one again. Right, okay, let's see what we can do here. Okay, so scratch that. I've changed it. I've gotten rid of the lap 0 up here because that was confusing me. I want it all in the same place. So apologies for wasting everybody's time, but you know, what are you going to do? We just set the lap time to active up there. And then we come down here on the lap time and I have these variables. So I've got on collision with start grid, if the lap is equal to 0, so the instance variable is 0, then we wait 2 seconds and set it to 1. The issue I was having was we were setting it to 1 immediately, and that was confusing the system because the system can get confused sometimes, I suppose. Then if it equals 1, we set the lap time over on the right hand side. We wait 2 seconds and set it to 2. And this is exactly what I've done for 2 and 3. And it was so simple, I can't believe it took me a few minutes to figure that out. But this is what it looks like. Starts on 0 here, so our debug text is set to 0. When we cross the line, it'll wait a couple of seconds, then set it to 1. And off we go. We're on lap 1. And I'll probably have that text displayed anywhere. I might change debug just to say lap 1, because it's good to know what lap you're on, right? Probably in the middle here, somewhere of the HUD. Then we go around and it sets our time to 18 seconds. So can I do this in 35 seconds and knock a second off my time? Oh, get off the wall. 36, exactly 18 seconds for lap 2. Get off the wall. Get off the wall. 54. So I was 18 seconds per lap. It doesn't show milliseconds. Maybe we can look at that in a future tutorial, but there we go. That's how we've done our lap time. We've got this debug counter here which tells us what lap we're on, and I probably will make that part of the HUD and make it white and change the font so it records what lap we're currently on. I'm going to leave it there for this one. In the next one we're going to tweak the HUD element a little bit. We're going to add some nitros in, so when we pick up the nitros it shows us at the bottom how many we have, and then if we push a certain button, probably the space bar, then we'll boost our speed forwards for a few moments. That's all coming up in the next episode, and I will see you then.